Hey class, welcome to week 2 of COMM 313 online for spring 2019 at Loyola University. I want to thank everybody for completing your introduction quiz last week during week 1. If you have not completed it yet, please make sure to do so, as it is 5 points towards your participation grade. I do want to let you know that I went ahead and I added an image of our textbook, so that way you can make sure to purchase the correct textbook. So it is right here. Just as a reminder, for each week you need to make sure to click on this lessons tab here, and that will go over our weekly content for each week. So let's go ahead and look at week 2. So if you click on lessons here, it will take us to the lessons page, and now we are in our week 2 content. And if you scroll down here, you're going to see our week 1 content is still up here from last week. Here's the location of the introduction quiz. So if we scroll up here, you're going to see the additional items for this week is the chapter 1 lecture, which I will be lecturing on. It's our PowerPoint. Again, I will be placing all of our PowerPoints for each week up here for our class, depending on which week it is. So for example, during week 3, if we go here to our syllabus, we scroll down here, we're going to see that during week 3 I will have chapters 2 and chapters 3 in the lessons tab there under week 3. So for this week and week 2, we're going to have our chapter 1 PowerPoint under there. So let's go ahead and go back to our lessons for this week. So during week 2 of the course, we are going to review chapter 1. I want to go into this class with baby steps. So this week we're only going to do one thing, and we're going to cover chapter 1. That way it will help prepare you for anything that you need to complete moving forward. You'll have a good idea of how our online class works and what to expect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and download our chapter 1 lecture, which is this PowerPoint here. And I will go ahead and lecture on this PowerPoint. Let's go ahead and maximize this. So today we're going to look at chapter 1 of our corporate communication book, which discusses defining corporate communications. So during this chapter, we are going to look at scope and definitions of corporate communications, key concepts that you're going to have to know for the term, and also outline trends over time in corporate communication. So first, let's take a look at the definition of corporate communication, what it is, so that way you have a good idea of what we're going to be discussing this semester. So corporate communication is a management function. This is where the management comes in and they communicate with stakeholders within the organization. It offers a framework for the effective coordination of all internal and external communication. So we have internal stakeholders and external stakeholders. For example, an external stakeholder, let's say for Whole Foods example, an external stakeholder would be a shopper or someone who may come in, just to purchase something, or maybe just kind of walk around, whatever it may be. These are external stakeholders who are interested in purchasing something from the organization. Whereas internal stakeholders are people who may work for the stakeholder, investors in the company, and so on. Corporate communication is also with an overall purpose of establishing and maintaining favorable reputations. So you want to make sure that you establish and you maintain these favorable reputations. It takes a lot of work to establish favorable reputations, and it's even harder work to maintain them in today's society of digital communication. Also, finally, it's with stakeholder groups upon which the organization is dependent. So going back to what I discussed about internal and external stakeholders, Whole Foods is dependent on their internal and external stakeholders, just like any other organization. So there has been change over time with what corporate communications is. So if we look back, we had really just PR, which is public relations, until 1970s. It was just tactical, more of communication with press. If something came out about an organization, the press would handle it, they would report it. Whereas now, corporate communications has a lot of different variables that play an important role and key factor into how to be successful when you are communicating in a corporation. It's holistic. It focuses on organization as a whole. So, we want to, nowadays, people in an organization want to believe in the mission statement. They want to know that the company that they're working for is something that they believe in to move forward with. There's a big holistic approach with how it focuses on an organization as a whole. There's also stakeholder presentation, which how an organization presents itself to key stakeholders, whether they are internal and external. So how are you going to communicate to your external and internal stakeholders? With your internal stakeholders, how are you going to communicate to your employees? What are you going to be telling them? Are you going to have weekly content to show them what's going on in the organization? Are you going to be transparent with what you do? There's so many factors that play an important role in the stakeholder presentation. Okay, let's take a look at our 21st century corporate communications. So take a look at these different boxes. I'll give you a quick second to look at them. So these are the range of specialized disciplines. You have corporate advertising, corporate design, internal communications, issue and crisis management, media relations, investor relations, change communications, and public affairs. These are all specialized disciplines in corporate communications. So you can see there are a lot more variables in the 21st century corporate communications compared to pre-1970. So you have types of activity. You have the managerial and the tactical types. So the managerial is more for planning, coordinating, counseling CEOs and senior managers. This is the managerial portion, where tactical is more of how are we going to communicate it, whether it's producing messages, how are we going to get these messages across? Are we going to create a press release? Are we posting something on social media? This is the tactical type of activity for corporate communications. So let's take a look at what factors make corporate communication more complex. Nowadays, we have a wide geographical range, and because we have a wide geographical range, we are dealing with different types of geographical areas. And this is a big part in corporate communications because there are so many different elements that play an important role in this geographical range. We have to make sure to communicate to everybody, to be transparent to everybody who is a stakeholder in our organization. There's also a wide range of services and products. Nowadays with digital communication, it's easy to ship things worldwide. It's easy to communicate with clients in New York. There's a wide range of service and products nowadays in corporate communications where it's important to have a good understanding of how to communicate to these internal and external stakeholders. Also, corporate headquarters and various divisions and business units. So let's just take a look at the last 10 years with the merge of social media, of how it's played such an important role now in organizations. 10 years ago, you probably couldn't really find a social media manager for an organization. Now, if you go into an organization, you're going to find a social media manager, a Twitter coordinator, a Instagram coordinator, a Facebook coordinator, digital marketing advertiser. There's so many now new positions within just the last 10 years of just because of social media. So now take a look at the last 20 and 30 years of what's been going on, how these corporate headquarters and various divisions have increased and grown within the organization. So let's take a look at a mission. So what is a mission? It's overriding purpose in line with the values and expectations of stakeholders. So if you're a stakeholder in an organization, whether you work for the organization or shop at the organization, you want to have a mission that your stakeholders can buy into. So let's take a look at British Airways. This is their mission statement. British Airways is aiming to set new industry standards in customer service and innovation, deliver the best financial performance, and evolve from being an airline to a world travel business with the flexibility to stretch its brand into new business areas. So you can see British Airways is really trying to let their customers know, hey, we are going to be innovative. We want to have high standards in customer service. And this is what people, especially stakeholders, buy into. Now we have a vision statement. A vision statement is different from your mission statement. This is the desired future state, where the organization wants to go, what is their aspiration. So British Airways is to become the undisputed leader in world travel by ensuring that British Airways is the customer's first choice through the delivery of an unbeatable travel experience. And we have corporate objectives. So corporate objectives is a statement of overall aims in line with the overall purpose. So what kind of objectives, what goals is the corporation looking to achieve? For British Airways, it's to be a good neighbor, which this should be in English terms, or it could be the other way. Concern for the community and the environment. To provide overall superior service and good value for money in every market segment in which we compete. To excel in anticipating and quickly responding to customer needs and competitor activity. Then you also have strategies. This is the ways of mean in which the corporate objectives are to be achieved and put into effect. So when you have your objectives, you have your goals. Well, how are you going to achieve these goals? And this is what a strategy comes into place, where British Airways is continuing emphasis on consistent quality of customer service and the delivery to the marketplace of value for money through customer-oriented initiatives. So this is how you're going to move forward. What kind of strategies are you going to use to move forward? And then a corporate identity. This is the profile and values communicated by an organization, the world's favorite airline, which is this corporate identity with its associated brand values of service, quality, innovation, cosmopolitanism, and Britishness is carried through in positioning, design, livery, and communications. So, British Airways, it's the world's favorite airline. This corporate identity with its associated brand values of service, quality, innovation, and cosmopolitanism and Britishness is carried through in positioning, design, livery, and communications. Keep in mind, I believe this book is from across the pond from England, which is why they have different spellings on some of the words. So these PowerPoints do come from the textbook. So if you do see these types of typos in your textbook, it is just because they may spell them differently. It's almost like the word gray. It's spelled gray. In the United States, I believe it's spelled Gray, where in England it's spelled Grey. So you'll have a few different spellings. Corporate image, what kind of image does the organization want to receive? This is the immediate set of associations of an individual in response to one or more signals or messages from or about a particular organization at a single point of time. So when you see the Apple logo or an Apple store, you have an image of this corporation. And these are the types of images that organizations want to show to their customers, where they're going to be positive images, where people see their images and say, hey, this is a corporation that I follow, I like, and I purchase from. And reputation, this is an individual's collective representation of past images of an organization. So for example, if we look at British Airways, through the Executive Club program, British Airways has developed a reputation as an innovator in developing direct relationships with its customers. So what kind of reputation is the organization going to have? So we have stakeholders. So this is any group or individual who can affect or is affected by the achievement of the organization's objectives. So for British Airways, you have employees, consumers, investors, shareholders, the community, aviation business, the suppliers, government, trade units, NGOs, and society at large. So the people who create the food for that you put on the airplanes, they're a stakeholder in British Airways. So you could see stakeholders are a wide variety of people and groups and individuals. Let's take a look at the market. It's a defined group for whom a product is or may be in demand. So British Airways flights consist of passengers who search for superior service. This is their market, people who want an excellent service. And communication, which is the tactics and media that are used to communicate with internal and external groups, such as newsletters, promotion packages, advertising campaigns, whether it's social media or how do you advertise for it. And integration, finally, is the act of coordinating all communication so that the corporate identity is effectively and consistently communicated to internal and external groups. How are you going to integrate this? Whereas with British Airways, they aim to communicate its brand values of service, quality, innovation, and cosmopolitanism and Britishness through all its communications in a consistent and effective manner. So please make sure you have a good understanding of these definitions. This is not going to be the last time you hear these words. We're going to be discussing them quite a bit moving forward in this semester. So please make sure you have a good understanding of them. So let's take a look at some trends with the 1980s, and then we're going to go moving forward with the 1990s and 2000s. So in the 1980s, we had restructuring trend in corporate organizations. Fragmentation led to each department sub-optimizing their own performance. And then if you look moving forward in the 90s and 2000s, this is when we really had a big issue of corporate branding, identity, and reputation. The corporations had to really start branding themselves, create what kind of identity they wanted to have, and even a reputation. You know, what kind of reputation are we looking at? Because with with technology becoming more digital, and we're able to communicate in electronic communication forms, people are able to share their opinions online. You know, they want to make sure that when they're purchasing something from an organization, that they're buying into this place, that this is something that they want to move forward with. You know, like Apple, people who buy the iPhone know it's going to be of good quality moving forward. And so this is the identity and branding that Apple has created for themselves. And of course, there are some downsides. It gives impressions that stakeholders can be managed or even controlled. You know, nobody wants that feeling of being able to be controlled. It models of reputation management, corporate messages to direct outcomes in terms of awareness, attitudes, or broader reputational change. It can even imply a linear model of communication. You don't want a linear model. You want a circular model where you communicate to your stakeholders, they communicate back, you take what they say, you make revisions, and then you communicate back to them again. And it's a full circle. But some downsides are it implies a linear model of communication. And of course, another downside, stakeholders are active agents, not passive agents or speakers in waiting. Now let's take a look at some of the trends in the 2010s. So stakeholders have become much more active. They voice their expectations. They are self-organizing. They're advocating. You know, you can see on Facebook how a group can be started to boycott an organization. Stakeholders have become much more active in today's day and age of digital communication. They're empowered by new media technologies that are more interactive and dialogue based. I mean, take a look at what I think it was what Whole Foods is doing in the San Francisco Bay Area. They've created a few stores where you walk into the store, you put items in your bag, and you walk out, and it automatically charges you. You don't even have to go to a cashier. So you can see what kind of technologies are emerging, and they're blasting this on social media, on email blasts. So this new media technology is allowing them to be more engaging with their stakeholders, making it more easy for stakeholders to access their products. Also, a gradual shift towards stakeholders sharing experiences, opinions, and ideas about organizations. You know, any Facebook page, you can go on a Facebook page, share your opinion about the organization, and discuss it with others. And of course, there are challenges and opportunities through word of mouth and peer-to-peer influence. So finally, engagement, it's not merely about sharing opinions and perspective. There's a lot more that goes into it. Also, an organization needs to make sure that they are transparent. You want to be transparent because if it shows that you're trying to hide something, people will not buy into what it is that you're doing. Acting in character to bring across identity, fostering stakeholders to become genuine advocates, and of course, without this, stakeholders organize for action and point out lack of authenticity. You don't want stakeholders to say that you are not authentic because word of mouth will travel and they will share their ideas. And finally, for our last slide, our trends in development and corporate communication, you can see here where we have gone to positioning to now stakeholder engagement, where we have advocacy, transparency, authenticity, interactivity. You know, stakeholders want to interact with the organization. So there are a lot of things that are now going on in today's day and age, whereas back in the 1900s and 1970, you just really had your PR. In the 1980s to 2000s, it was really just branding, positioning yourself, and now there's so much more communication. You could see why corporate communications is such an important role in any organization in today's day and age. So that is it for week 2. You do not have any assignments to complete for this week. Please make sure to read over chapter 1, have a good understanding of our key terms, so that way moving forward you know what we're talking about. And of course, if you have any questions whatsoever, you can always contact me. As a reminder, I do want to show you that in our syllabus, I do have my contact information, which is my cell phone. If you need to ask me a quick question, feel free to send me a text message, or you can even send me an email if you would like, which I have my email listed here. So I wish you guys all the best of week for week 2. And finally, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me, guys. Take care and have a wonderful week.